we'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which all of us are joining this meeting from this morning. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and welcome any First Nations people that are in attendance today. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to hand over to Michael and he's going to kick off S&W-Spec. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Natalie. All right, thanks, everyone. For this, I'm going to turn off my camera for this purpose, because I need to look at the bigger screen, and probably looking at the side of my head's not great. So I'll just do that. But yeah, so welcome and thanks for coming today to 2024 National A-SPEC Forum, Empowering Infrastructure Management with Data Excellence. The forums have once again been recognised for their contribution to industry. If you attended each forum plus the showcase, you're eligible for 10 points for the series per membership and 3 points for the showcase. During the forum, questions will occur during the session. We'd love you to respond. However, if you are more comfortable listening, we'd love that too. Each time you see the head cogs, this will signal that a poll will be run and the polls will be closed at the end of the forum. So the Geospatial Council of Australia, formerly SSSI, is 2 points per forum, 3 points for the showcase. The Surveyors Registration Board of Victoria is 2 points per forum and 3 points per showcase. And the Land Surveyors Licensing Board of WA is 2 points per forum and 3 points per showcase. So welcome, and as Natalie mentioned, to the combined S&W-Specs Forum. You have just been experiencing the network element of this session. Hello, my name is Michael Balfour. I'm filling in for George today. I have 16 years of experience working in GIS and asset management, primarily within the water authorities. In my previous role, I was part of the asset strategy, planning and performance team. Currently, I'm working with GISA and Digital Hive in project, admin, and on other various projects related to the capture of above and below ground assets with A-SPEC data. As I mentioned, you will notice that this year we have combined S&W's spec forums. This is something new that we thought may be of benefit to all the S&W stakeholders. As our audience tends to attend both sessions, we're interested in your feedback at the end of this session, specifically if you would like us to continue with this or separate them out individually again. The information presented to you will either be specific to one of the specifications or common to both. And if you've attended other forums, you'll have noticed that the governance conversation has been featured throughout them. So first things first, let's run the poll. See how we go with this.
Yep, that's my cue. One moment, please. Okay.
Okay, so who's providing data in the new version? Yes, no, or possibly considering? So regarding the adopting the new version of the specifications, would anyone like to share their experience of transitioning, specifically for S&W specs? Anyone out there want to have a bit of a chat? No hands up?
No hands up from what I can see, Michael.
Okay, all right. Well, I think we'll move on from that, Natalie.
I'll move on to the next poll, which is similar, who is requesting the data in the new version. This is more for the councils, I suppose, requesting the data. Nope. Okay.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing and go back to you, Michael.
And I will
Okay, fabulous. You're muted, Michael.
Sorry about that. Just bear with me. I had a technical issue then. Can you see the slideshow?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I've muted myself.
Yeah, I've got a technical problem here. Just bear with me a second, please. I just have to redo something. Okay. Sorry, that was just Teams being a bit silly. Okay, on the screen we have two documents related to capturing data for new and existing assets. There is an existing asset specification that's typically used for capturing backlog data, while the DDS version focuses on delivering as constructed data. While we're showing only W-SPEC documents at the moment in this slide, the poll is also relevant to S-SPEC. So I think we have another poll here, Nat.
We do. Did you want to keep? Are you going to keep talking?
Yeah,
while we do the poll, great.
Yeah. So,
no problem.
Yeah.
The next poll is: has anyone undertaken backlog capture of water and wastewater using the existing asset spec?
So we're looking. So if there's anyone there, okay, no.
We got no's. Anyone else?
No, well, that sort of ruins the next part of it. what I was had to say. Right. So, all right. So no
I'll
one
stop
is
sharing. We'll go back to you, Michael.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell them what would happen if they were.
Yeah.
In the data capture that way.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, to summarise, the DDS version focuses on the construction of the as-constructed environment, new assets and attribution, and the existing version focuses on assets already built, typically pre-A-SPEC. Examples for use are for desktop backlog data capture and additional field data capture to verify spatial accuracy, attribution, and inventory. So everyone would be familiar with this layout. The following pumps attribution data structure is intended as a guide to assist you when capturing asset attribution. When we're presented with data that will be imported into a system, we must analyse it and select the appropriate data types for each value. So looking from left to right, we have the column name. This shows the title of the attribute to be collected. Then next is the data type, which indicates the structure for formatting. Then max length, the length of characters that a field can hold. The details section shows the level of precision required for specific data types. The description describes or defines the type of information expected to be populated. QA validation describes mandatory requirements for successful validation. And code list reference contains a hyperlink to the code list reference within the document itself. The primary principle is that each field must be filled out using the description field as a reference for the information that needs to be provided. It is important to note that each layer should only include the listed attribute. Any additional attributes will hinder the automatic acceptance testing and may lead to not meeting A-SPEC requirements. Now we have the existing asset specification, with just a small recap on how to use this specification. The existing asset standard specification was created to enable local governments, utilities and water authorities around Australia to participate in utilising one common data structure when dealing with the collection of data for existing assets. Again, please note that this applies to both S&W specifications. Looking at the image in the slide, there's an example of how the existing version looks. Please note the column at the far right, which outlines the requirements for each attribute. We have C, which is, this is a core requirement. Data is to be collected in the field to populate this attribute. O, optional field, just in case. And Y and R. This is for a required attribute and may need more research, possibly through sourcing existing plans in the office or other field investigations. These existing asset codes are typically used for backlog data capture or specific projects to verify existing assets in the field. It's important to note that every attribute is required. The main difference is whether the value needs to be provided or if a default value is to be used. So what else have we been doing? Well, essentially, we've been future-proofing by continuing to look for anomalies within the documentation, undertaking further research on data governance and its impacts, updating sample data to reflect the recent changes, updating codes and code lists within the documentation, updating the API code lists, asking and looking for input from A-SPEC users into the specifications. When we look for input or crowdsourcing, this provides better scrutiny as the number of users increases and provides a continued focus on data governance. We are enhancing our processes and procedures to future-proof our operations and ensure consistency across all specifications for the A-SPEC community. We value input from consumers and aim to maintain harmonisation while appreciating your feedback. Soon I'll discuss data governance relating to A-SPEC in more detail. Gaby, if you're there, would you like to mention about the API being accessed to all subscribers in the next financial year?
Okay. So there was a decision taken. I guess I took a decision to make the code list, the online code list, available to everybody, and it's going to become part of the subscription. The reason behind that is we wanted to basically take the code lists and make them open source, and also crowdsource new values. Now I have demonstrated the code list application before, but just for as a summary, we have an online application, a little website where you can go and search for codes, what they mean. You can go and search for what is the available code for something that you specifically have, and that way getting to the code, the required code or the issue that you have, try and resolve that quite quickly with the website. There's also an application that allows you to capture new codes. So if you're missing a code and you think, oh, I think there's a code missing and it should be X, then you can go online and you can go and capture that code. When you capture that, it becomes part of the code list, but it's marked very clearly as it is part of something that was crowdsourced. GISA will then have a look at that, and if they approve it, it becomes part of the code list straight away. So it just shortcuts the long process of going backwards and forwards and getting permissions, etc. It just allows us to source codes quite easily. Now, just a little bit of background. Within the specs, throughout the specs, there's this C comments tool or a code. So when you're looking for a code, you can't find something, you don't exactly know what should be captured, or there isn't something available, you can then say see comments, and in the comments field you can put in what you think it should be, or a description of what the code you're looking for, what that is. The idea is not for those C comments to be captured into your database. The idea is for that to, you know, for a conversation to be started, to get the correct code, and then to replace the C comments value with the new code. But then we want to make it available for people quite quickly. And using this process will actually make it a lot easier for people to do that. So an online application that you can query codes and extract codes quite easily. Now, that application also has an API, and all that means is that you can write, if you have the ability to write software, you can write a REST API. It's a REST API, and you can write a piece of code that'll extract that data from the online database and consume it wherever you need to consume it. So wherever in your GIS or your data capture tool. And if you did that means that you will always have the latest and greatest codes, because this will be maintained and kept up to date. That's enough for me. Michael?
Thanks, Gaby. Thank you. That's very informative. We will look at code lists further on in the presentation as well, in a little bit more detail. So thank you, Gaby. Okay, this was discussed last year, so we're going to expand on it somewhat more. This is a question for everyone. Has anyone been asked by an A-SPEC member to use AS5488 and then wondered what else is needed to comply with S&W specs? So that's a question for everyone. Maybe raise your hand or a comment in chat, maybe.
Or even just jump off mute and tell us your thought. Everyone's very quiet this morning, Michael.
They are very quiet. Okay. All right. As you may be aware, AS5488 has been developed to address the classification of subsurface utility information. So what is AS5488? It's an Australian standard for the classification and management of subsurface utility information. It is a standard developed by Standards Australia titled Classification of Subsurface Utility Information. It provides guidelines for the consistent classification of information relating to subsurface utilities. It provides a framework for the systematic and consistent management of information related to underground utilities such as water and gas pipelines, electrical cables and telecommunication lines. The standard outlines the process and procedures for the collection, recording and sharing of information related to subsurface utilities, intending to reduce the risk of damage to these assets during construction and excavation activities. AS5488 was first published in 2013. It has since been revised in 2019 and again in 2022. It is widely used in the construction and engineering industries in Australia. Well, today we are lucky to have a subject matter expert, Gaby. He is the chair of the AS5488 committee.
So did you want me to say something?
Well, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we have another poll here, Natalie.
We do. Let me just share my screen again.
The poll will be, has anyone been asked to use AS5488 for construction or development projects? Which would be very interesting to see. So anyone who has had, would they like to talk to this? What they were requested to do, or?
I only got one as a yes.
Yeah, it's on the spot.
Who's that?
Okay. All right, I'll continue on.
Continue
As you can
on.
see on the screen, the documents have a section for AS5488. I suggest reviewing these sections. As you can see on the screen, the documents have a section for the specification. I suggest reviewing this section to get an understanding of what your client's requirements are regarding this standard and the correlation to specific A-SPEC asset classes and fields. Don't forget, if you need assistance, Gaby is the chair of the committee and can be contacted for further guidance. Okay, Gaby, is there anything you would like to say now?
I look, if I don't know what, I didn't have anything prepared, but AS5488 specifically, as Michael said, is something for is a standard to control data that comes in, and it really has two purposes. The one purpose is to assist people, or to provide a framework when doing street graffiti. It's what I call it. When you marking up and looking at what's there, trying to ascertain what's there, and the standard specifies what are the methods that we should use to investigate what's subsurface, and then how to mark the data that's there, or how to capture the data that's there. The colors that you saw, those are they're not prescriptive. They are recommended, and so you can use your own colors, or you can use the colors as provided by your council. So that's in terms of the colors. The colors is not the main part of the standard. What the main part of the standard is all about is the capturing of the data that goes with the as constructed subsurface utilities, or utilities that will be captured. Now, the standard is very clear. It provides, it doesn't provide all the fields that's necessary in terms of the data model. It relies on utilities to supply their own attributes, their own fields, but it provides a few basic ones. It provides basic metadata standards, and and all of it has to do with quality assessment, and to get a quality A, what do you need to have, and what do you need to be able to guarantee that you've discovered. Quality A, quality B, C, and D. So quality D is circumstantial evidence. Quality, so that's just stuff that you might find in a database, or drawings that you've got. You haven't actually been out to the field, and that'll give you a quality D. Quality A is a horizontal accuracy of 50 centimeters, or 500 mil. What am I talking? 50 mil, and 70 mil for the verticals. And if you don't attain that, then it becomes a quality B, and a quality C has got a few other parameters that determines whether something becomes a quality C, and there's a lot of it. I guess the point I'd like to make is there's the spatial component, spatial accuracy, but there's also attribute accuracy. If you've attained the spatial accuracy, but you haven't attained the attribute accuracy, then you cannot claim an A, B, C, or D. And part of the spec is very specifically to determine what level you've attained, A, B, C, or D, and that's what the spec is all about. I think that's enough for me from that for this moment.
Thanks, Gaby.
Okay.
So this current slide is a snapshot of the relevant sections for AS5488 in S&W-Specs. The details to be provided by the locator consist of the two related tables, as shown in this slide. The first table, the utility asset identifier and matched A-SPEC, is solely about metadata of the asset, which are details about how data was collected. And the second table, location supplementary information to be provided by the locator, is about location supplementary information. So the example is the size field with the first red circle above. There is no disparity between integers, floats, or real numbers, and should be left up to the asset or project owners to define. Be aware that to comply with S&W specs, you need to use the relevant data type as specified. For example, the diameter of a pipe is to be integer, specifying millimeters. Example 2 is data governance. This specification data is to be provided as a combination of text and graphical files as specified by the asset owner. They could be in CAD, GIS, or other software forms. And a note is the source field in the A-SPEC tables is equivalent to the quality level attribute in this standard. So really, I guess what it is understanding how you map this AS5488 to the S&W-Spec fields, just to make sure that you're getting the right information.
Michael,
yep.
Michael, I'd like to make a comment.
Yep.
If you go back to that previous slide, that note that the source field is equivalent isn't entirely correct.
Okay.
The standard is prescriptive in terms of the quality level, and you have to have the QLA or QLB or QLC, those values, and that's different. Now, I know that there's probably a mapping between them, but that note isn't entirely correct. It's not the source field, cannot be used as the equivalent field.
Okay, we'll take that up with with our friend.
Oh, I thought it was you. Okay, all right.
No, I'm reading this, right? Okay. All right, so let's examine this slide. You'll notice that the two example tables from the previous slide are now filled in with relevant correlated data. As you can see, we have the asset IDs, the types, the potable water, the company, a feature code, the diameter of the pipe, how it's described, its current status. And then underneath we have information about position. So to re-emphasize, this is valuable information. In order to meet the A-SPEC requirements, it must be input into the appropriate attribute fields linked to the asset identifier, also referred to as the asset ID or unique ID in A-SPEC terminology. Okay, so what are the changes and possible impacts in the documentation? You'll notice yellow and blue highlighting these colours. These colours indicate updates to the specification. Blue indicates that something has been removed, and yellow indicates what the new update is. The topic I'm about to talk to will have an impact on most of you, and GIS has thoroughly evaluated the scope of its effect on members. So number one, the low impact to delivery example is where there's been an adjustment to a code description. As we can see from this slide, the description for FRC has been changed from cement to concrete, which is just a change in descriptive terms. FRC is a common code change across DOR and S&W specs. So most likely you would have seen this example in other forums. The second one is the medium impact to delivery example. Shows that the QA validation that stipulates the validation check requirements was missing. QA validation is a guide to assist developer consultants when putting together information for submissions. So it's kind of important. And third, at GISA, no issue is too small. We have not shown an example here today for either S or W specs, but there have been some grammar changes as well. In this slide are the other changes. For example, typos. In this example, we can see that the additional O has been removed because it's too informal to use in certain situations. The missing field for unique ID was originally omitted from the wastewater sample data, but that now has been rectified. 3, the change of data type from alphanumeric to integer. Alphanumeric characters include all 26 Latin letters and the digits from 0 to 9. Sometimes special characters such as and, star, and at are included. An integer is a positive number, a negative number, or 0, but not a fraction or a decimal fraction. Also, the removal of duplicated attribute fields like the photo ref field has occurred. So I think we might have another poll here, Nat. So
I'm not sure we do actually. I think it might just be a question.
Okay. Well, all right. All right. Given these types of changes, would you like to see updated documents published? So you could just put a response into chat.
In the chat would be great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. So just to note, when there are discrepancies between PDFs and sample data or other material, please use the PDFs as the source of truth. GISA has used their best endeavours to align all content, so they're thankful when they receive feedback and apologies for any inconvenience. Okay. Specification future changes. There are no current future plan changes planned for. However, as they say, the devil is in the detail. Input from the A-SPEC community is important. The community assists in finding anomalies, which has a significant benefit of finding unexpected solutions early. As is the case, GISA welcomes and encourages your input. This is what adds rigour and governance to the specifications. George requests that you continue with all your suggestions, please. A series of frequently asked questions have been fielded by GISA. So, first question was regarding codes. I've downloaded the amended code list, and can the new code in this be used for A-SPEC version 5 submission, or as well as those for version 6, please? So, yes, there is only one code list, and it is to be used irrespective of version specs, which is George's answer. Question 2, how do I add a new code? This will be discussed in the governance section further. And question 3, why is the sample data on a different projection to what I need? It has been, well, and George's reply is it has been supplied to provide a head start when setting up your A-SPEC environment. The projection will need to be updated by the user to view it in their required projection. So, and next we'll look at the presentation of pipe alignment. This could be the pipe configuration at any sewer pump station or water pump station. So representation. You will note that the core attributes are assigned to the point feature and the polygon is a supplementary feature. The key purpose of this is to ensure that there is a if there is a die before you dig inquiry, whoever is receiving this data will see the extent of the feature. And this applies to almost any situation. The combination of photos and comments is invaluable. So when you look at this, this could be a small site where it could be a small SPS or a water pump station where you have the network moving in and out of the building there. So you still want to know where the pipe ends and begins in the building, but you also want to know that for those die before you dig purposes, that what other obstacles may be around you. So as this applies to almost any, so miscellaneous text. Has anyone thought of having text placed as a point with an attribute value representing the point? If this is of interest to the group, please let us know in chat. So if there's anyone who wants to know. Nothing? Okay. I'll keep going forward. All right. This particular query came to GISA. We're getting a lot of and this probably comes back to what Gaby mentioned earlier on. We're getting a lot of C comment with the value of GATIC in the notes for the access point access method. We capture iron in the lid material field, but not sure if GATIC should fit somewhere. The way we're interpreting it is if the access method is GATIC, so they're implying no ladders or step irons. However, this may not be the case, as nothing is preventing an asset from having both a ladder and a GATIC lid. Any thoughts, or have you had any discussions in this space? Also, you might need it. Also, you might need a description for the NLS code. So that long-winded part there was a lot of questions from a member, and the GISA's position on this is, fortunately, GISA had this description correct in the code list spreadsheet. So I'm not sure if you want to mention anything about that, Gaby, but anyway, we'll look at the FID value in the sample data. So,
did you want me to say something, Mike? Is that what?
Yeah. Sorry, Gaby. Yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
So the question here was whether just go back to your FID.
Okay.
The question here was whether the FID can be used as a unique identifier, and my answer to that is yes, it can, but you have to understand what happens. It can only be used as a unique identifier when you put the data into a different field. The FID will always it's a calculated value, and it'll always be added to anything that produces a shapefile if that shapefile doesn't have a defined key or a defined unique identifier. And that's in order for shapefiles to be compliant with international standards. So an FID is added. What I often do is I use that FID and I do a calculation where I go, some prefix and concatenate that with the FID. And I do that at one particular at a particular point, then I save the data without a cross-reference back to the FID. My concern with the FID is that if I do a re-index, very often that FID may change. That shouldn't happen when you processing data in the process of processing data, but it is possible that the FID will change. When you bring different data sets together, then you could have duplication in terms of FIDs, and that's why I would normally concatenate it with say a project prefix or something like that. So can I use the FID as a unique identifier? You can use it to generate a unique identifier, but I wouldn't recommend that you use it as is as your unique identifier. I think that's enough for me.
No, that's covered it all. Thank you, Gaby. Okay, next slide. Okay, we had an extra slide in there. Above ground assets, GISA's guidance. Given the experience that GISA had with the Marty treatment plant upgrade project, it was identified that there were sufficient tables that currently exist in the specifications to address the asset classes required. The specifications have been developed to address asset classes at a broad level. For example, tanks, buildings, and other structures, and then distinguished by their subtypes. The starting point is to often look at the componentry required by the asset owner and then explore the specification to see if there is an associated table or not. For instance, if there is a specific feature such as a chlorination unit, the question is it a mechanical or electrical feature? By examining the structure of each specification, we can check the relevant table to see if the asset can be accommodated based on attribution requirements. If it can, then it can be included as a new feature in the code list, inheriting the attributes in the table. If not, a new table is usually created. So now we'll look at governance. and we'll reinforce some examples under these two key areas. Sorry. Okay. For a successful implementation, updated contracts for a gifted asset and capital works project must be issued to satisfy the company's need for as constructed data that complies with A-SPEC requirements. So I think in my experience with this is that there's been a situation where what's been delivered in the as constructed data hasn't matched up with capitalisation forms that have been supplied by external stakeholders. So there was an instance where, you know, the calculation for the total length of pipe for a subdivision didn't match what was in the capitalisation form. So therefore, the gifted assets are the financial value isn't correct, and you're overvaluing your assets. So you're not getting a good look at actually the cost of your network. Okay. So this GISA showed this last year and has a watching brief on this. An initiative was taken up by WASA with an MOU with BIM for Water in the UK for the management of asset data using Uniclass, which is WICHS, which stands for Water Industry Classification Hierarchy and Standardisation Group, is a task group within BIM for Water, which forms part of the UK BIM Alliance community. As you might know, Uniclass was originally established for the building and construction industry. The guide intends to allow each water business to map its asset classification hierarchy to Uniclass. Our initial observation is that this approach is based on engineering design. For example, the focus is on materials rather than a focus on asset management requirements. Currently, there is no guidance that we can see to go to the A-SPEC level. Okay, let's look at the area of work extent, for example. In the 2019 versions, it was critical that all assets were to be provided within the area of work extent boundary. In the 2023 versions, this is no longer a requirement, as there is now an area of works identifier to link all assets to specific projects. It leads to a question we were asked about creating a specific area of work ID or a whole project area of work ID. So in my opinion, the area of work ID should cover the whole project. This identifier is applied to all assets within a project extent. Additionally, there is a unique ID field that will hold the unique identifier for that particular asset. The next slides reinforce governance for codes and codes list. As you can see, there are three criteria for the creation, either from a new attribute, a new asset class, or the changing of the attribute requirement. In this instance, it was the creation of a relevant code list. Typically, additional code lists are now only created at a time when a specification is being revised. So just a little note here, and I think I'll cover it further on, but you'll notice that you've seen those blue highlightings with the strike throughs and the yellows. So the blue strike throughs are from the old code and they've been changed, and the yellow indicates what that change is. So you'll see that throughout the specifications. This is a new initiative by GISA and requests that everyone becomes familiar with the process. In February this year, GISA communicated with us that they want to explore crowdsourcing codes. Why, you may ask? As I mentioned at the beginning, crowdsourcing and regular input from the A-SPEC community saves time, assists in getting the code you need at the time you need it, limits delays, and as Gaby spoke earlier, makes the C comment field redundant. Well, what's the process? When an opportunity arises to go to the authoritative source, either the API, web, or code list spreadsheet should be used. This is an example in this slide searches for a specific hang on. Yeah. This example in this slide searches a specific code list in the spreadsheet. However, this is not the end of it. In the search window, enter the code you want to use and see if it's used elsewhere within the code column. If it does exist, try another code. If it doesn't, then you have your code. Please communicate this to GISA via the contact form on the A-SPEC website or via the API. When the verified proposed code does not exist, then the code can be used straight away. So I think we might have a poll here, Natalie.
We do.
So the poll is, have you used this checklist before?
Finley knows, but one yes.
Yeah, but that one yes is me.
Oh. You're skewing the results, Gabby.
Yeah.
You can talk to it then, I suppose, can't you?
Okay, the asset
Right,
checklist.
I'll stop sharing and let you continue, Michael.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Okay, asset checklist. Why is this so important? The A-SPEC asset data handover checklist has been created to assist in identifying and confirming which asset classes should be collected for a project. Additionally, these documents, as well as the asset attribute data, can assist the authority in the capitalisation process of the project and for their financial and asset financial registers. These checklists can be utilised for both paper and digital forms. Users may also find it beneficial to integrate this checklist into their data management plan and best practices for field data collection. We found this a great way to identify exactly what asset data is expected at practical completion. And there is a place for both parties to sign off. The checklist can be found in the overview document and also as a standalone document in the proposed changes section on the A-SPEC website, and it is available for download now. And also, it's my understanding that there is a draft for a fillable PDF waiting approval. Okay, so yeah, so this other side shows the where the sign-off sections are for all stakeholders. Right, quality assurance. Certification form, quality assurance. The project QA report documents the quantity, acceptable tolerances, and changes of assets in each specification that will be collected and can assist in evaluating a completed project in conjunction with the asset and asset data handover checklist. Why is this so important? From our observations, there is a continued concern over verifying that what has been built is recorded as constructed data and not a submission of the project plan. This is about recording variations that have occurred during the construction phase. The report provides certainty and confidence and removes time and effort to verify what has changed. Also, the form completes the records of officers monitoring and signing off on the works. An example is a GISA client was provided a developer consultant's capitalisation form that indicated longer lengths of pipes that were installed and then were submitted via the as constructed drawing, and which puts into question the project and its asset valuation. We have the certification form. This form was created to be provided with each data submission to document details about the project. Think of it as metadata about the project. When we look at this form, it's easy to understand what data is to be captured. So, it's quite explanatory when we look at it. With the description there, it's pretty easy to know what you've got to fill in. So there shouldn't really be too much extra effort for everyone to provide. So changes during construction forms. as I mentioned earlier, and from GIS's observation, there's a continued concern over verifying that what has been built is recorded in the as constructed data output files. GISA have now incorporated both into one as a CSV. Why, you may ask? Well, that's a good question. Well, now there's one document provided that covers the whole project, who delivered it, and what, if any, changes occurred. We see that it is a joint responsibility, and we anticipate it will also confirm what council officers have recorded. This is placed on the website and available for download now. All right. We don't have a poll, just a QA for this one. This is George. He's interested to hear from a surveyor from each of Vic, New South Wales and WA about their views and if this is being discussed in their state. If you don't mind jumping in, it would be great to hear from you. So I don't know if we have any surveyors with us today that would like to jump in and say anything, or anyone else.
Just jump off mute and feel free to jump in.
Okay. Okay. Monitoring the various forums, GISA have seen two specific instances where this is spoken about. One is at Apoya forums. GISA has seen activity about the process for handover, particularly capital works, and Queensland, as per the examples shown. So George, I'm just going to post a link in here. Just bear with me, in the chat that George has asked me to pop in here. And this is a link to, I believe, to, just a second. Can't seem to get the, just bear with me. Can't copy the link. Just bear a second more. Okay, I've got it now. Okay.
Perfect, well done.
Anyway. He's asked me to post the link in chat to an article in Spatial Source about providing certification for as constructed plans. So if you could have a look at that, that's there for your consideration. So thank you. Okay. I'm not sure that if no one wants to speak to this, that Gaby, do you have anything to provide in this instance for?
Not actually, Michael.
Okay.
All I know is that what I'll say is that it looks like the Surveyor Board of Queensland is looking at requiring certification for the creation of ASCONs, which just points at how important it is for them. I know that there has been similar issues raised in New South Wales as well as Victoria. I have no clue how far that is and what's going on in those jurisdictions.
Okay, thanks, Gaby. Yeah, we have that article that people can refer to. I guess we provide a bit more information and help them, guide them to where they need to find anything else out. All right, so I think the next one is Tech Talk with Gaby. So that completes my update for you. Our MC will now introduce Tech Talk with Gaby. Thanks for your time today. I'll speak to you later regarding the wrap up.
Thanks, Michael. That was great. We've got a bit of a quiet audience this morning. People aren't jumping in and sharing, but it's great when you do, guys. So if you've got any comments or, I don't know, case studies that you wanted to chat about, please do. Usually in this part of the forum, we would have a community speaker, and unfortunately, not for want of trying, we were unable to secure someone today. We spoke to a number of our water authorities, and unfortunately people are on leave and that kind of thing. So we're going to skip that part. We're going to go straight into a presentation from Gaby. So take it away, Gaby. I think you all know Gaby. He has spoken at all of our forums thus far and is a wealth of knowledge. And I will leave it to him to update you on some tech things to do with S&W-Spec. Over you go, Gaby.
Thanks for that, Nat. Okay. I just want to see if I can move this thing over here. Right. I did say in the previous forums that I've decided to change the way that we do the tech talk, just because we were gauging interest of people to get the real technical bits and pieces, and people don't necessarily enjoy that. And so we're trying to change this a little bit. So we have a technical discussion, but it's just a discussion. So I'm going to tell you two stories or talk about two things that I've been involved with recently. Now, I know that a lot of the people who are on this call have actually been to some of the previous forums, and so there is a little bit of I am going to be talking about the same topic as I talked about earlier on, or at the previous ones. I will change it up. I'll shorten that first discussion, and then I will jump into something else that I've been doing, and it's just interesting, and I think might be interesting to discuss. But I am relying quite heavily on the users to give us feedback and to comment on what we say. And if we don't have comments, it's going to be a very short tech talk. So let me carry on. I've recently had a project with a major company, and at that company we have some of these. We have one of these. This is a Matrice 300 RTK drone, and it has a docking station where it has weatherproof covers. It's got a little bit of a weather station there, and it enables the automation of flights at different times of the day, and depending on the weather. So this thing is clever. It won't release the drone if the wind is too strong. So it has various other automatic docking capabilities, functions. Here's old Eddie and showing off the LiDAR payload on the drone. And Eddie is our drone pilot, pretty clued up surveyor, and he's also a very good pilot, able to do all sorts of interesting maneuvers with that drone, something that the owners are not always appreciative of. What was interesting for me about this is, if you look at the two payloads that's there's the infrared and there's the LiDAR payloads. It's really plug and play. You have a small bayonet that you uncouple, take the payload off, push the next one in. It really changes. Changing from one payload to the other is really, really quick and easy, and that actually makes it very easy to run two different missions, exactly the same waypoints, one after the other, in quick succession, but one with LiDAR, the other with payload, with infrared. So that enables us to do a lot of interesting bits and pieces. Here's a shot of the project on the right-hand side, and these people have a lot of social responsibility, and they also reach out to the community and offer a service. And so we use the drones for both the actual survey side of things as well as for agriculture. Here's just a screenshot of some of the kinds of things that we extract from it. Now, we had several issues with this. The biggest issue was that the RTK base stations the RTK base station that we used didn't always give us the results we wanted. And we ended up swapping out to a MLIT base station that we married up with the drone, and that gave us better results. But it also meant that some of our imagery and the LiDAR didn't always match up, and we had lots of problems to sort that out. The biggest issue was really the sheer volume of the data. It's just phenomenal how much data we were able to generate, and it is still a headache to try and manage all the data that one is generating. We did all of that because we wanted to experiment with as-built automation. So we started off with the design, in a A-SPEC like format that we loaded into a geo package. We then went and flew the stuff. So from the drone perspective, and from the data capture perspective, we went to go and look for stuff that we already knew something about. So it's not like we're starting from complete scratch, but we are actually looking for, and we managing the drone and sending it off to as-built elements that we know what should be there, or that should be something there, and we go and investigate and come back and then extract whatever we needed to, and then we used the Google Earth machine learning platform. So that's not the normal Google Earth that you may be familiar with. There is a machine learning platform with AI in the background, and we used that. So to get to that, though, we needed to use some Autodesk software. We used Pix4D and QGIS, and so all of those had roles to play. That's I'm listing the input data that we used. The training process was quite tedious, and we had to repeat a lot. Results we got was fairly usable, but very, very time consuming. So as an experiment, one could say that it wasn't very successful, but it was the first time that we worked with an AI process to try and automatically recognize as-built based on what we know has been designed and what we know is expected to have been built. And that was a good learning experience for us in terms of just getting going down the track of as-built automation. So at that point, that's just what we did. And I'd like to open it up for discussion. Is there anybody else? If you can take yourself off mute, and if you've done something similar, or if you think this is the future, or if you think it's not the future, I'd like to get comments. No? Okay. All right. I'll skip that over. I will talk about another AI experiment that we've done. This is very much more relevant to the water industry. So we wanted to see if we can use AI to clean up errors in data. But we didn't want to expose data models. We didn't want to expose client information. And we wanted there to be no way that people could interpret, that the AI platform could interpolate client information and extract client information. But we wanted to see what can be done, what can be achieved with the AI. So in preparation for all of that, I got a complete data set from a particular client, and then we started obfuscating. We obfuscated a lot. We moved, rotated, and warped the data set to a different location. We removed all the fields that was related to any client identification directly. So we had client IDs and things like that. And we also had addresses, and we removed all of those. We then took the extracted pipes, the start nodes and end nodes. We extracted those and we randomized them, but keeping them together and mapped to new IDs. So basically, we constructed a random set of IDs that we mapped to all the old ones, so that there was absolutely no trace back to anything that we knew about. And we did something similar. We did that with pipes. We did that with service connections. And we updated these based on the randomized IDs that we've used. We then converted all of the tables and field names to randomized names as well. We based those randomized names on other specifications that so this client had used a particular specification, not A-SPEC, something else, but we randomized it so that, again, there was no way that it could be traced back to the data models or any data that they were using. Then we rebuilt and fixed the table, some table issues. So we spent quite a bit of time to obfuscate the data set. And one of the other important bits is that we assigned a different SRID and we warped the data. We physically changed the data and put it in a different place. We then prepared some training Excels. So basically with these AIs, you've got to train them up to tell them what they're looking at. We prepared several training Excels. In there, we placed the table and attribute relationships, class relationships, key foreign key pairs. We took all the geometries and we converted them. We reduced the number of vertices so that it's not more than 50 vertices. There was technical reasons why we did that. We calculated well-known text for all of those geometries, and we used that as our experimental data sets. And then we started asking questions. First of all, we created a control data set, a separate data set, so that we can go and look at the answers separately. We randomly deleted some diameters and material attributes in the pipes and the nodes and service connections. And then for each of the classes, we asked AI to suggest the best value for the blanks. We initially didn't have very good results, but after several trials and more training, we got a more than 90% fixed rate. And I think if we carried on with the training, we would have hit 100% in terms of that. We then used the control data set and asked it to identify potential errors in the data. So this data comes from a client, but over many, many years, they've captured their data. And so this time we threw the data set as captured, and obviously as obfuscated, and asked the AI to suggest if there was any fixes that it could suggest. Again, we needed to do a bit more training, but the results for us, in most cases, we either agreed with what the AI proposed, or we were ambivalent. We didn't have any disagreements in terms of the AI responses. Perhaps I just need to explain that a little bit. So when the AI suggested that it's a particular material, and we looked at the surrounding data, then very often it makes sense. Sometimes it just didn't make sense, but we didn't know why it didn't make sense. But I can't say that the AI got it completely wrong ever. So that was an interesting bit. We asked the tool to create shot blocks, and in that process, it identified a lot of connectivity issues, and did so accurately. So the intention wasn't we didn't think that it was going to identify the connectivity issues, but creating shut-off blocks, if you wanted to create shut-off blocks, your connectivity issues have to be absolutely spot on. And so the AI identified those, and actually I want us to investigate that some more, because it shows quite a lot of potential as far as I'm concerned about that. We provided the design geometries, so it's in a particular small area. We then generated an as-built, only geometries, and provided an aerial photograph that was sort of in the right spot, thinking that what we could do is to see if the AI will predict what the attributes should be and where that should go, even though, because we've provided it with the actual designs, but the results were terrible, and basically we ran out of time on that one. What do we want to do next? We'd say that this experiment was quite interesting and produced exciting results. We want to repeat the whole exercise with an actual client data set, but we are concerned about the anonymity of the data model and the connectivity with potential privacy issues. And we haven't got solutions for those 100% yet, but that's what we would like to do next. And that's it from that experiment. Are there any questions? Okay.
It's a quiet group today, Gaby. Is anyone using drones at all? Have they got any comments on what Gaby's just provided us?
I'd be more interested in finding out if anybody is interested in using AI to clean up data and to find errors in data, or is that not a thought? No?
Maybe people are thinking about it. Raj just said he's very much interested in the comments. So that's good.
Okay.
Hey. Gaby, I've just got a quick question. I've got some polls for you that are your software polls and that kind of thing. Are you wanting to run those this morning?
Those are probably not as relevant. So
not
probably
so relevant
not
today. That's fine,
Yep.
No problem. But we won't run those. In which case, Michael, we might go straight to the wrap up.
Okay.
from you.
Sure.
And I'll get the final polls ready for later.
Okay. So the wrap up, what's next? Well, what did we look at today? We looked at the new version of the specs and spoke of changes in those specifications. We looked at crowdsourcing for CodeList, and the CodeList spreadsheet is continually being updated and improved. Please familiarise yourself with this. We also looked at governance, and in governance we looked at data, processes and contracts. Also, we spoke of checklists and forms and as constructed variation reports and their importance to delivering as constructed data to clients. And we touched on the certification of as constructed before delivery to clients. Coming up next, A-SPEC is part of the continuous A-SPEC improvement. What are the intentions of A-SPEC and why? At times, GIS has been asked to include a new asset class that does not necessarily fit into any current specifications. A-SPEC is being launched with the initial asset class fuel tanks, combustible liquid tanks. And then assets like EV charging stations will be linked to A-SPEC, and solar farms will be a longer time frame as we determine the most appropriate spec for them to sit with. Maybe under future E-SPEC, E for energy. What can you expect with A-SPEC? The X-Files maybe? Bit corny there, George, but you know, anyway. A-SPEC will be a complementary specification that is of no additional cost to subscribers. So I think we have some farewell polls.
We do. I will launch those and I will wrap things up as well in a moment.
And don't forget, we have the showcase next week.
Yeah, so we just ask that we like to get some feedback on our speakers. We've had Michael and Gaby today. Thank you, gentlemen, for both providing great information today. So today was the last of our specification-specific forums. Gosh, say that 3 times fast. And next week we have the showcase. So the showcase is the culmination of the forum series. We wrap up the, I suppose, lessons learned and information passed on through the forum series this year. And we also then hear from a number of speakers that cover off on interesting topics to the community. So if you haven't registered already, there's still time to do so. We'll be hearing from our keynote speaker is Adam Beck from Hub. He will be speaking, and we also have our speakers from Open Spatial and One Spatial who'll be speaking on their services that they help and work with GISA on. We will also be hearing from Craig Sandy, the Surveyor General of Victoria. He'll be talking around licensing for surveyors. And look, overall, it should just be a great session to hear from different people that bring good information to our community that, you know, slightly different way of coming at things. So the showcase is always a great way of wrapping up the forum series. And so for any of you that haven't yet subscribed, please do so. We'll look forward to seeing you next week to cap off what's been an amazing 2024 series. I think we've done fairly well with George in absentia. I think we've held the baton okay and hopefully provided some information to you all. So it's a shorter session today. That's because we don't have a community speaker, but we'll give you your morning back so that people can get on with the rest of their day. Unless anyone wants to.
If anyone has any questions they want to raise with
have a chat, we'll stay online for a little while. Have a chat with anyone if they want to, and otherwise, thank you all for attending. Thank you for participating in the polls, and hopefully we'll see most of you next week.